The Velkari High Command's emergency session was interrupted by reports that humans had just deployed siege weapons from the 12th century to defend the demilitarized zone. Commander Zilax's communication array exploded with panicked transmissions. "Sir, the humans are installing wooden structures along the neutral perimeter. The field officer's voice cracked. They're assembling what our historical database identifies as medieval artillery." "Impossible!" Zilax hissed, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "The treaty explicitly forbids advanced weapons. We witnessed them decommission their plasma cannons ourselves." "Commander, you need to see this." The hollow screen flickered to life, showing human soldiers in standard combat fatigues cheerfully constructing an enormous wooden frame with a counterweight arm. Next to it, racks of what appeared to be oversized arrows sat in organized rows. Ambassador Kael'thas burst into the command center, her bioluminescent markings flashing alarm red. "The Zarelian delegation is threatening to withdraw from the signing ceremony. They're saying humans are violating the peace treaty before the ink is even dry." According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Get me the human delegation. Now. 3 minutes later, Sergeant Emma Johnson's face appeared on screen, looking decidedly unbothered by the diplomatic crisis unfolding around her. Behind her, 2 human soldiers were test-firing a crossbow at a target dummy. "Sergeant Johnson," Zilax forced his voice to remain level. "What is the meaning of this? You agreed to no advanced weapons in the demilitarized zone." Emma glanced over her shoulder at the Trebuchet assembly, then back at the screen with a slight smile. "Yeah, we're in full compliance, Commander. No plasma weapons, no kinetic accelerators, no electromagnetic pulse devices. All decommissioned, like we agreed." "Then what?" Kael'thas gestured frantically at the screen. "Do you call those?" "Oh, these!" Emma picked up a crossbow, inspecting it casually. "This is called a crossbow. That big one over there is a trebuchet. We've also got longbows, ballistae, and a couple of mangonels being assembled on the eastern perimeter." "You're deploying weapons!" Zilax's voice rose despite himself. "Well, sure. You said no advanced weapons." Emma's expression was pure innocence. "These things are from the 1100s, Commander. They're literally medieval technology. Show me exactly where. In Article 7, Section 3 it says, 'No pointy sticks and some rope.'" Kael'thas pulled up the treaty on her datapad, scanning frantically. The spirit of the agreement clearly... "The spirit?" Emma laughed. "Ambassador, with respect, I'm a soldier, not a philosopher. The treaty says, and I quote, 'No weapons utilizing plasma generation, kinetic acceleration, electromagnetic projection, or explosive propellants.' These are wood, string, and counterweights. My grandmother's pantry is more technologically advanced." "This is semantics," Zilax snapped. "No, Commander, this is contract law." Emma's tone remained cheerful, but her eyes hardened. "You wanted demilitarized. We demilitarized. You want to renegotiate the terms. We can do that. But right now, we're following the letter of an agreement that your diplomats spent 6 months crafting." The communication channel from the Zarelian delegation lit up again, more insistent. Then the Krabaxian representative. Then 4 more species, all demanding immediate clarification before proceeding with the signing ceremony. Zilax stared at the medieval siege equipment being assembled with alarming efficiency by humans who looked like they'd done this 1,000 times before. The entire peace process, 3 years of negotiations, countless concessions, the end of a war that had consumed 12 star systems, was collapsing over the definition of advanced. "Stand by, Sergeant," Zilax said grimly. "We're convening an emergency council session." Emma gave a casual salute. "We'll be right here, Commander. Take your time. We've got about 40 more crossbows to unpack anyway." The emergency council convened within the hour, with Ambassador Kael'thas leading the diplomatic offensive. Sergeant Johnson, while your interpretation is technically accurate, surely you understand the intent was to limit technological sophistication in weaponry. Emma held up the crossbow, turning it slowly for the camera. Ambassador, this is literally string and wood. The most complex part is the trigger mechanism, which uses the same principle as a door latch. My grandma makes scarier quilts, and she's 83. Nevertheless, Kael'thas began. Commander Xylax, a Velkari tactical analyst interrupted, his voice tight with urgency. I've completed the preliminary assessment of these primitive weapons, sir. The effective lethal range of their crossbows is 450 meters. The armor penetration capacity... He paused, mandibles trembling. It exceeds our ceremonial guard's protective gear by a factor of 3. Silence fell across the council chamber. That can't be right, Xylax said slowly. Wood and string. I'm reading the historical data correctly, sir. Humans use these weapons to kill each other for over 8 centuries. The casualty counts are... The analyst's bioluminescence flickered with distress. Extensive. The Krebaxian delegate leaned forward, his translator crackling. I propose a practical demonstration. Let the humans prove these weapons' capabilities under neutral observation. Emma shrugged. Sure, Martinez, you're up. A second human stepped into frame, a tall woman with calloused hands and an expression of profound boredom. Isabella Martinez picked up what the database identified as a longbow, nearly as tall as she was, and selected an arrow from a quiver. Target, she asked. The standard range markers, Xylax said, begin at 100 meters. Isabella didn't even look particularly focused. She drew the bow. The Velkari sensors registered 90 kilograms of draw weight, more than their species could physically manage, and released. The arrow buried itself in the center of the 100-meter target. Adequate, Xylax admitted grudgingly. Now, try. Isabella was already shooting. Second arrow, 150 meters, dead center. Third arrow, 200 meters, splitting the second. Fourth arrow, 250 meters, center mass. Fifth arrow, 300 meters, hitting the target with enough force that the impact registered on seismic sensors. Computer assistance level? The Krebaxian delegate demanded. None, Emma replied cheerfully. That's all meat and practice. Martinez here does this for fun on weekends. That accuracy without targeting algorithms is impossible. Kael'thas stared at her datapad as if it had personally betrayed her. The calculations required for wind resistance, gravitational drop, target movement. She's not calculating, Emma said. She's just done it about 10,000 times. Also, fun fact, a trained longbowman can maintain 10 to 12 arrows per minute for extended periods. Martinez, show them sustained fire. For the next 60 seconds, Isabella became a human arrow-launching machine. She fired 12 arrows with mechanical precision, each one finding its mark at varying distances. Her breathing never changed. She looked about as stressed as someone filing paperwork. The Velkari tactical analyst was making choking sounds. Commander, that fire rate, that's 17% higher than our approved sidearms. With wood, Xylax said faintly, and string. Now, the Trebuchet, Emma continued, clearly enjoying herself. This one's my favorite, completely passive system, no power source needed except gravity. The massive wooden structure groaned as human engineers loaded a 90-kilogram projectile into the sling. They released the counterweight, and physics took over. The projectile arced gracefully through space before impacting a reinforced target bunker 300 meters away with enough force to crack the foundation. Kinetic energy of impact, the Krebaxian delegate whispered. Approximately 47,000 joules, the analyst replied, his voice hollow. That's equivalent to approved explosive ordnance. Using a rock, Emma added helpfully. Or concrete. Or really, anything heavy, very sustainable, environmentally friendly even. The council chamber erupted in 17 different languages, all variations of the same theme. Humans had found a loophole large enough to drive a siege weapon through. Emergency caucus, Kael'thas declared, her bioluminescence strobing panic yellow. We need to determine how to classify weapons that predate spaceflight technology. This session is adjourned for 2 hours. Emma waved cheerfully as the connection cut. We'll be here, just unpacking the Greek fire canisters. The screen went dark on 36 alien faces frozen in expressions of dawning horror. When the council reconvened, they'd brought reinforcements. Expert Vexia, the Galactic Council's foremost authority on weapons classification, materialized on the primary holoscreen. Her reputation for absolute technical precision had resolved 72 interstellar arms disputes. She looked supremely confident. That lasted approximately 4 minutes. After thorough analysis of the human equipment, Vexia began reviewing her data screens with multiple appendages. I must conclude that, technically speaking, these devices contain no explosive propellants, no electronic targeting systems, no advanced composite materials, and no prohibited energy sources. She paused, her confidence visibly wavering. They are, by the strict definitions outlined in the treaty, non-advanced weapons. Thank you, Emma said, grinning broadly. See? We're the good guys here. However, Vexia continued, the lethality indices are… Oh, speaking of which, Emma interrupted brightly. I should probably mention we also brought pikes, halberds, warhammers, maces, morning stars, and about 40 barrels of Greek fire. You know, the essentials. The council chamber fell silent except for the universal translators struggling to keep up with the collective inhale of horror. Greek fire, Xylax repeated slowly. That's a chemical incendiary. That's explicitly… Nope, Emma pulled up a data pad. Article 7, Section 3, Subsection B prohibits chemical weapons designed for toxic or corrosive effect. Greek fire is an incendiary mixture, basically oil, resin, and some other stuff. It's not toxic, it's not corrosive, it just happens to burn really well, including on water, which is fun at parties. It's a chemical weapon. Kael'thas's bioluminescence was now a distressed purple. It's a cooking accident that got weaponized, Emma countered. We've been using it since 672 AD. That's over 300 years ago. If you want to ban traditional cooking oils, Ambassador, that's going to make a lot of species very unhappy. This is insane, muttered the Xerelian delegate. Commander Xylax, Vexia said carefully, I recommend we request historical context for these weapons' usage. Xylax's mandibles clicked in what might have been agreement or a stress response. Sergeant Johnson, provide combat effectiveness data for your medieval arsenal. Emma glanced off screen. Hey, Chen, bring up the history files. She turned back to the camera. So, funny story. During what we call the 100 Years' War, which actually lasted 116 years because humans are bad at naming things, the English longbowmen at the Battle of Agincourt killed approximately 10,000 French soldiers in about 3 hours. 10,000. The Crebaxian delegate's translator struggled with the number. With bows and arrows, Emma confirmed cheerfully. The Battle of Crécy, which was earlier, saw English longbows cut down French cavalry charges so effectively that it fundamentally changed European warfare for centuries. Crossbows were so lethal, the Pope tried to ban them in 1139. Didn't work. Obviously, we just kept making them. A human historian appeared on screen beside Emma, adjusting his glasses. If you want the full picture, medieval siege warfare casualties averaged 40–60% for attacking forces. The Mongols, using primarily composite bows and siege engines, conquered approximately 12 million square miles of territory. That's about 16% of Earth's landmass, and killed an estimated 40 million people, with horse archery and catapults. The council chamber had gone completely silent. I'm sorry, Kael'thas said faintly. Did you say 40 million casualties, with bows? And swords, and spears, and psychological warfare, the historian added helpfully. The Mongols were very innovative. Oh, and siege engines similar to those trebuchets you saw earlier were responsible for breaching city walls that had stood for centuries. Very effective. We got very good at killing each other before we even invented gunpowder. Vexia was scrolling through her data with increasing agitation. These efficiency rates, the kill-to-deployment ratios, this can't be accurate. I can provide peer-reviewed historical sources, the historian offered. You use these simple tools to kill millions of your own species? The Zarelian delegate sounded genuinely nauseous. Oh, that's just medieval period, Emma said. Ancient Rome killed way more people with gladi and pilum. The Assyrians were terrifying with bronze weapons. Humans have approximately 10,000 years of documented practice in creatively murdering each other with whatever materials were handy. Zilak stared at his tactical display, where casualty projections were being recalculated based on medieval weapons' effectiveness. The numbers were horrifying. We defined advanced by technological sophistication, he said slowly, not by lethality. That's a pretty big oversight, Emma agreed sympathetically. They're more dangerous with primitive technology than most species are with plasma rifles. Kael'thas was scrolling frantically through combat effectiveness comparisons. How is that possible? Practice, Emma shrugged. Lots and lots of practice. The Krebaxian delegate called for an immediate vote. Do we rewrite the entire treaty, potentially extending the war, or do we allow this loophole and accept that humans will be defending their territory with weapons from before they achieved spaceflight? The voting lights began to flicker across the council chamber, each delegate facing an impossible choice: swallow their pride and accept medieval siege equipment in a 24th century peace treaty, or restart negotiations with a species that had just proven they were frighteningly competent at low-tech warfare. Before you vote, Emma said, pulling up a manifest on the main screen, you should probably see the full inventory. We've got ballistas, battering rams, mantlets, siege towers, boiling oil cauldrons, caltrops. Those are fun, little metal spikes that absolutely ruin cavalry. Charges, pavises, poleaxes, and about 300 other items that predate gunpowder. The voting lights flickered and died as delegates reconsidered. Emma held up an ancient-looking book, its pages worn but carefully preserved. This is a reproduction of a tactical manual written in 1489 by a German military engineer. It details combined arms warfare using pike formations, cavalry charges, artillery positioning, and siege tactics. We've got thousands of these. Humans wrote instruction manuals on how to most efficiently kill each other with pre-industrial technology. She set the book down, her expression shifting from cheerful to something more serious. Here's the thing you need to understand. We've been perfecting murder with sticks and rocks for 10,000 years. We didn't get less creative when we invented better materials. We got more creative. Every weapon we brought here has been battlefield tested over centuries. We know exactly how effective they are because we use them on ourselves first. Admiral Dirax, who had remained silent until now, spoke from the Velkari Strategic Command. His voice carried the weight of someone who'd spent 40 years in military service. Commander Zilax, request permission to speak plainly. Granted. They're better at low-tech warfare than we are at high-tech warfare. Dirax pulled up comparative tactical analyses. Our approved sidearms have a 200-year development history. Their longbows have over 3,000 years of refinement. We train soldiers for 3 years. They have combat manuals dating back millennia. If we restart this war with both sides limited to primitive weapons, he paused, we lose, decisively. The council chamber erupted again, but this time the panic had a different flavor, pragmatic fear. This is absurd, the Zarelian delegate protested. We can't ban these weapons without banning most species' historical armaments. The Krebaxians still use ceremonial spears. The Altarians have ritual swords. We'd be criminalizing cultural artifacts. Exactly, Emma said. You wanted to limit weapons technology. We complied, but you assumed primitive meant harmless. That's not our fault. Kael'thas looked like she'd aged a decade in the past 3 hours. What do you suggest, Sergeant? Because I don't see a path forward here. Emma leaned back in her chair. Maybe stop focusing on the tools and start on why we're fighting. We spent 3 years negotiating this treaty because both sides were tired of losing ships and people. The demilitarized zone is supposed to give us space to build trust. Does it really matter if we're standing guard with plasma rifles or crossbows? It matters, Zilak said quietly, because we thought we understood the threat parameters. And now you know you never did. Emma's voice wasn't unkind. Look, here's a pragmatic solution. You accept the treaty as written. We keep our medieval arsenal, and in exchange, she glanced off screen, then back, we offer joint training exercises. We teach your forces historical combat arts, not to use against us, but because clearly there's a gap in galactic military education about pre-industrial warfare. Admiral Dirax's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Cultural exchange through military training. It has precedent. It would demonstrate good faith, Kalthas admitted slowly, and it would give our forces familiarity with these weapon systems. Plus, Emma added with a slight smile, it might help everyone understand that the weapon isn't what makes humans dangerous. It's the 10,000 years of aggressive creativity we bring to any combat scenario. The Krebaxian delegate pulled up a revised proposal. New addendum to Article 7. Weapons classification based on manufacturing date rather than lethality. Pre-industrial arms, permitted in demilitarized zones under mutual observation protocols. Humans provide instructional training to interested parties on historical combat methodologies. Seconded, said Admiral Dirax to Zilax's visible surprise. Thirded, Kalthas added, her bioluminescence finally shifting toward a calmer blue. Better to understand these capabilities than to remain ignorant of them. The vote passed with near unanimity. The treaty would be signed as originally written, with a single addendum acknowledging that advanced now meant something very different than it had 3 hours ago. As the council prepared for the formal signing ceremony, Emma muted her mic and turned to Isabella Martinez. Wait until they learn about our martial arts traditions. I'm thinking we introduce them to Krav Maga next month. Isabella's expression remained deadpan. Jiu-jitsu first. Start with the basics of turning someone's momentum against them. You're evil. I like it. The treaty was signed that evening, witnessed by 19 species, and guaranteed by the realization that humans had just taught the galaxy a fundamental lesson. Sophistication and lethality weren't the same thing, and sometimes the oldest solutions were the most terrifying. 3 months later, the training grounds of Neutral Station Harmony 7 echoed with sounds not heard in galactic space for centuries. The thunk of arrows hitting targets, the creak of trebuchet arms, and the considerably less dignified sounds of alien soldiers discovering that medieval warfare required entirely different muscle groups. No, you're still using your arms, Isabella Martinez called out to a Velkari recruit struggling with a 40-pound longbow. Draw with your back muscles, pretend you're squeezing your shoulder blades together. The recruit managed to draw the bow halfway before his arms started trembling. How did humans survive being this violent toward themselves? He gasped. Stubbornness and spite, mostly, Isabella replied cheerfully. Across the training field, Emma Johnson, now officially coordinating the Historical Combat Studies program, supervised a group of Krebaxian soldiers attempting to load a ballista. The species' multiple limbs should have given them an advantage, but they kept getting tangled in the rope mechanisms. Commander Zilax observed from the command platform, his mandibles clicking in what had become his permanent expression of resigned bewilderment. Ambassador Kalthas stood beside him, reviewing enrollment numbers. 43 species have requested training slots for next quarter, she reported. The waiting list is getting longer. Of course it is, Zilax muttered. We've given them access to humanity's 10,000-year murder curriculum. Emma jogged over, wiping sweat from her forehead. Commander, Ambassador. Good timing. We're about to demonstrate proper Trebuchet physics. The Zarelians specifically requested this module. A group of eager alien recruits gathered around as Emma explained counterweight ratios, projectile trajectories, and the elegant simplicity of turning potential energy into devastating kinetic force. She made it sound like a pleasant afternoon science project rather than a weapon that had once leveled fortified cities. Remember, Emma concluded, any weapon's advanced if you're on the receiving end. These tools are simple, but simplicity doesn't mean ineffective. It means reliable, repairable, and adaptable. A Velkari officer raised a manipulator appendage. Instructor Johnson, what topics will you cover in the advanced courses? Next semester we're doing Roman military tactics, testudo formations, siege engineering, logistics management. After that, Mongol horse archery and steppe warfare doctrine. Emma grinned. Then we get into the really fun stuff. Greek phalanx tactics, Viking shield walls, Japanese feudal combat systems. Mother of stars, Zilax said faintly. We should have just specified no human weapons in the original treaty. All human weapons, from any era. Too late now, Commander, Kael'thas replied, watching a Crabaxian successfully launch a trebuchet projectile that sailed beautifully through the air before pulverizing a target bunker. We've opened Pandora's box. What's Pandora's box? Ancient human myth. I've been studying their cultural references. Kael'thas's bioluminescence flickered with dark humor. Everything that could go wrong came out of it. Rather appropriate, wouldn't you say? Emma dismissed the class and checked her chronometer. All right, that's enough medieval carnage for one day. Same time tomorrow, people. And someone remind the Altarian squad they have hand-to-hand combat training at 0800. She headed toward the cafeteria, calling back over her shoulder, Commander, we really need better coffee in the instructor's lounge. The current stuff tastes like engine lubricant. I'll see what I can do, Zilax replied automatically. As Emma disappeared into the station corridors, presumably to complain about coffee and absolutely not to plan the next phase of historical weapons education, Kael'thas turned to Zilax. Do you ever wonder, she asked quietly, what we've actually unleashed? We made peace with humanity, but now we're teaching the entire galaxy their methods of warfare. Zilax watched alien soldiers practice with weapons that had conquered continents and toppled empires when most galactic species were still developing written language. I try not to think about it, he admitted. I really try not to. On the training field below, a human instructor was introducing a mixed-species squad to the tactical applications of the Warhammer. The aliens watched with rapt attention, taking notes. Somewhere in the universe, the cosmic balance had shifted in a way no one quite understood yet. Humans hadn't just found a loophole in a treaty. They'd begun teaching the galaxy that they'd been perfecting violence since before they reached the stars, and they had receipts going back 10 millennia. The peace would hold. But everyone knew now exactly what kind of species they'd made peace with.